Okay, committee of the whole agenda. Let's call this meeting to order. Introduction of late items. I take it there's no late items. It's our last
Well, I think it's
discussion.
like a, was a 10-second delay, good. Sorry.
Cool. So we start off with the approval of the agenda then. The recommended motion is the agenda be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Waymire, second by Councillor Pickard. Discussion, none. All in favor? We're good. Adoption of minutes, none. Public and statutory hearings, none. Unfinished business, none. Delegations, none. Administrative report, 2025 draft 5-year financial plan. Recommend motions that council receive the report for information. Moved by Councillor Pickard, second by Councillor Waymire. Discussion. Wow, lots to digest.
For sure.
You guys are still pondering, I'll start off. My discussions with the administrator, one of the challenge I had for him and his management group and the organization was to do a couple things for our budget this year. One was to try and get this budget process started earlier. And I know the administrator and his staff were really busy last year and it was a challenge to get that done. But this year they've risen to the occasion and they've got a budget in front of us in October. And that was my desire to have our operational budget and our tangible capital analysis budget done by the end of the year, which gives our operating staff the entire year certainty in terms of what we want to get done, plus the money being authorized to work from January all the way to December instead of us, finally getting our budget done in May. And then they only have like a 7 months year to work through because we haven't authorized anything. We haven't provided a budget for it. So I'm really, I just want to acknowledge their work because they have to dig deep to find the time in order to put this document together for us. And it's a lot of work. Like it's amazing to see the process as they go through and they try and pull this together for us. And the second challenge for them was that we couldn't have an operational budget with $700,000 or $800,000 deficit. It's just not acceptable. So it meant cuts and challenge the organization to find $500,000 worth of cuts without doing the following: cutting our service levels from 2024, laying off staff, firing employees. And that's a big challenge. I don't know too many people that can take a budget of this size and find $500,000 of efficiencies, effectiveness and savings in there and still provide the service levels that we had in 2024. Some changes with our tangible capital office when we see that, but I'm delighted with this document conceptually. I think it's great that the administration has been able to get us to this point. There may be some tweaking as we go along in terms of reflecting some of the things that the community wants and the councillors are feeling that should be incorporated in the budget, but we can move along with that. Tonight is our night for discussion and asking for clarification from the administrator, Aaron, who's our chief financial officer, in case there's something you don't understand or you want clarification on. So I'm going to start off by giving the floor to our CAO so that he can just give a brief introduction to this document. And then we can go through the process of start asking him questions or ask for clarification. But yeah, let's go there. Administrator Roy.
Thanks, Your
You have the
Worship.
floor, sir.
So as Your Worship has mentioned, we went with the goal of trying to maintain the current service level. So this budget is reflective of trying to maintain the current service level. We did go back and basically start from scratch in creating the budget. So we looked and evaluated every line item that we had to determine its appropriateness within our budget, whether some of it may have just grown over time or if there's things that are in there that just weren't necessary anymore because we're not doing it anymore, or there's no need for it. So we've gone through and been able to trim it down significantly from what was projected as a deficit for 2025 in the 24 5-year plan. This budget does do 8.9% for this year, 8.9% for next year, and then 6% for the subsequent 3 years after that. I still do have in here, included in the revenue, the shortfall that we have to address for the wharf as a discussion point for council for direction. There are some items that are operational that are still going to be in there that will be funded by a grant that was in the 24 budget and is being carried forward to 25 and And probably the big one there is the OCP and zoning bylaws updates. We do have our economic development plan in process now. It should be done by June of 2025. And we did add some money in the budget though in this to deal with the wharf and do some inspections. One of the previous inspections indicated that we'd probably start doing a regular 5-year inspection of that wharf. So that's one of the items that has been identified to get done in 2025. And of course, there's just the question around the one contract position that we have that council has agreed to support till the end of this year. With the approval to go for a grant on that position. We won't hear anything till the spring of 2025. So there'd be some consideration about an extension potentially to bridge that gap. And that could be covered within the existing funding we have for payroll. As you recall, we do keep a position in there in the administration should my position become vacant and you need more than one person. So we do have that
Probably about
contingency
4
built
people.
in there. So that part of that contingency could be used to fund this without us necessarily going back to the taxpayer for additional money. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Questions? Everybody must love your budget because there's no questions or else they want to get, oh, sorry. Thought you were off the hook there. Councilor Pickard.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Roy. And although it is conceptually beautiful and the charts are great, the picture is bleak, but thanks for all your hard work. And thanks for all your hard work putting it together. And I also really appreciate it that it's so early that we have some flex and then we can have residents involved and make it really transparent and inclusive process. So hopefully we'll see as many out as we're out tonight to argue the taxes.
Raising their taxes.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks for laying it out so nicely. And I like to see the new budget software put to use and just kind of how that's made so many numbers and so many complex things so easy to see. So thank you.
Yeah, I must admit, I do like open book. I didn't
Mhm.
cut you off, did I, Councilor Pickard? You're finished? Thank you. Councilor Wimmer.
I guess I got 2 parts here. Part 1, through the chair to the CAO, is about the Nimkish Park plan. We were looking at a plan for this year. I was just kind of wondering where we are with that and if that is going to be completed this year or if it's going to be carried on to this upcoming budget.
That will be carried forward to 2025. And that'll
And
become in the, this is just the operating side. We still have the capital side or the project side, which will be in 2 weeks' time. And that's where that budget item would be.
perfect. And I guess point 2 is the ECDev position. Personally, I want to keep that position going. And I think if we've got a grant for that position for 2 years in the chamber. It's been sent off and the last thing I want is to take, whatever 4 months off of like, hey, we don't have the money, but we're just waiting on this grant. I am fully supportive of funding, call it the difference, until, whatever it is, April, May, whenever money might be flowing in. And ideally it is flowing in.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Sorry.
Councilor Pringle. I can't see your face. All I do is see the administrator's graphs. There
That's
you
probably-
are.
That's
Thank
probably a
you.
good thing.
Hi, Ally. Excuse me, Councilor Pringle. Sometimes I slip up here.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. To the chair, I just would like to say also on Councillor Waymeyer's both points, but especially to the second point, I really think that that's something that we need to keep going. I mean, what's happening now in that position, there's so many good things coming out of there. I'm really glad that we did extend it when we talked about it until the end of the year, because it really gave the community and us time to see exactly what could be done and what has been done. And it's really impressive. And I just would really hope that that would we would cover those 4 months until we do get the grant. Fingers crossed, because you never know what can happen in this day and age.
Yeah,
But I'm definitely all for that. Thank you.
Counselor Fawson.
Thank you. And thank you to my fellow councillors for the comments on the ECDev position. I agree. Our economic development officer has done a great job getting grants and funding for nonprofit and other organizations in our community. But I think my understanding of economic development might be a little different or maybe skewed. In my viewpoint, economic development is for the business of the town. Like we look at our finances, we know what's happening, it's going downhill fast. Economic development should also include, I think, money that's going to be coming into the coffers of the village. It's great work that's being done for our community members and nonprofits, but are we seeing a benefit to our actually economic development for the village? Like who's pursuing businesses to come into our town besides the Chamber of Commerce? We have no plan for that. Maybe that's not our job as council, but our job is to manage the finances. And I don't see any money coming into the village coffers from that position unless we look at a professional company that specializes in that. Grant money is great, but I'm like, to fund it for another 4 months or whatever until the grant comes through, I'm not in support of that. We're hemorrhaging money in our budget anyways, in our finances. And
Gotcha,
Yeah.
Peter.
anyway, so that's just my comments. I just look at economic development differently than everyone else. But I do fully support the work that has been done, and I hope it continues in the future. I just want to see more focused economic development for our village.
Thank you,
Your
Counselor
Worship, if I
Fawson.
may.
Yes,
Yeah, just as a reminder, we do have
Sure.
the economic development plan that'll be done by June, which should give the actionable items that the economic development officer can also start working on to move forward. So that'll be another big piece, because right now there really is no plan. We're kind of in between plans. So I think a key element coming in to support this position to go the direction you're referring to is the creation of this plan. So I just want to make sure council's aware of that.
thank you, Mr. Roy. I was going to
That makes
reference that,
sense.
but I don't have to do that now. Counselor Waymire and then Counselor Pringle.
Yeah, that was pretty much my rebuttal too, is that what you're looking for there is exactly what we've got coming down the pipeline. I would rather not interrupt what we have going on for call it 4 months, and have that individual running full steam when we do get that plan, and then we can, get those actionable items that are going to reflect exactly what you're looking for, bringing, business into town. Because right now we're looking at we don't have a plan. We're a council that came in with, a plan that was just finishing off, and that was a little more tourism based. And what we were looking for here is a much more economic driven plan, and that's what we've got coming down the pipeline. So having that individual in place is going to be very useful to us.
Thank you, Counselor Waymire. Counselor Pringle.
I didn't have anything to say. Sorry, I was just opening my mouth to say, yes, I agree with everyone.
Well, that's a great thing to say. Counselor Pickard.
Thank you to the chair, and thanks Counselor Waymire and Henry. Great comments, gentlemen. And I do support the economic development officer, and I do think that the relationships and the funding coming into the village are very beneficial and worth more than the wage, and some support in the office, and also some continuity and a liaison for the contractors who are coming in to do our economic development plan. So someone who has history and has built relationships. So I see the value in it. And, I think we can easily sit here and say we're in a dire financial need, and maybe we need to hire someone to attract businesses to the area. But we also have to be really aware of our message to business too. Like last year, we our second most people in council, our first most people that have come to a meeting was a possible business tax and light industry and tax increase of 40% out of the blue. So that's not attractive to business coming to town if they see that that's the way policy can go, or examples like this evening, very great for the golf course and the golfers. But there's a lot of people that aren't golfers and the businesses who now have a business down the road who has a tax exemption for the 11th year and has, been able to not have to budget for that. So those are all messages to business. So we could hire someone, but we could also try to attract businesses by making it conducive and show our support, and that, where are we going to make this extra money that the budget's showing that we need in our deficits? We have residents and a limited number and possibly business growth, so all points to look at. Thank
Councillor
you.
Pickard. Councillor Fossen.
Thank you to my fellow members of council and through the chair. My point exactly. We need professional help to get this economic development going in our community. That's what I'm saying. We don't have professional help at this time. We're spending money, grant money, on someone who has been doing a great job, but this is not that person's expertise. And I think we're at a point in our life of our village that we need to make sure the value of the money that we're getting is being used to the best of the ability for our businesses in town, re-taxes, re-exemptions, everything. I appreciate the fact that we're going to be hearing soon about what is coming from our economic development officer. But again, like I raised before, our definition of economic development officer is not correct. And I raised that when we were looking at that position as well, that our definition is not correct. It does not it doesn't even define economic development. But anyways, I am in totally agreement with my fellow councillors on this. Maybe we need to keep it going until the grant possibly comes in. Great, but I do think that we need to I just would like to hope that maybe I'm not the only one thinking that we should be looking at a professional assistance in this regard. Otherwise, we can just keep kicking the can down the road and hope that it changes. That's just my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fossen. Anyone else care to comment? You're going for it?
Yeah, with different topics. So
Okay, I just want to stay on this topic. I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you. And I like the fact that it's very enlightening and it's very informative, very civilized. I like both points. I can't see why we have to choose between one and the other, and we can't have both. I think there's one level of economic development that serves really actively on the front lines in our community. And then there's a higher level of conceptual on what we need to do with, with our community and businesses and investment. And I can't see why we have to limit ourselves to a little box. We need to be outside of our box here if we're gonna move forward. And I can't see why having all those resources available wouldn't be an advantage to the village of Gold River. And certainly, if we're looking at economics as our greatest challenge in the village right now, why not look at both levels? We're going to have a report come back. It's a $75,000 grant. There's going to be lots of recommendations there and what we can do, things that we can afford, things that we can't afford. But if one of them, I'm sure will be, is that if we need to get somebody like Councillor Fossen has been alluding to work on it in a different way than the person that we've hired as our community advisor, our NEC Dev officer. I don't see why we can't have both of those functions going on at the same time, high level and an operational level. I just don't see why we can't do it if that's one of the most important things facing the village. And in my mind, the number one issue for the village right now is economic viability. Nothing more important. And while we're on the topic of economic viability, when you look at the way that our society is structured, it's the private sector's responsibility to do that. Their prime function is to provide those businesses, to attract the capital, to create the jobs, to generate the taxes, provides the goods and services. That's their role. And when you look at a mixed economy or free enterprise economy, that's their role. So what I'd like to really hear from the folks that are in our businesses, like from West Coast Marine Terminals, from Grieg Seafood, from Nukasam Marine Terminals, those are the folks that I want to hear from, because those are the folks that are going to drive the recovery of Gold River. I don't think it's coming out of this chamber, to be quite honest. I don't think it's coming out of the ECDev officer that we have. She's doing wonderful work, but I don't think that's her mandate to try and turn the economy around in Gold River. I don't even think that the $75,000 study that we're going to do is going to give us the answer. It'll give us some direction, but I'm not convinced that it's going to give us a solution. I do believe that the solution is going to come from people finding an environment that they think is worth investing in, because they got to spend their money. It can go anywhere in the world to make their returns for their company or for their shareholders. I also think that they're the people that know best on how to develop our resources and our businesses. They know how to create the jobs. They know how to run the business. They know how to provide the goods and services. Those are the folks that are going to drive it. The reason Gold River exists is because they wanted to, the private sector people thought that was a good idea to do resource management in our community and run a pulp mill, paper mill, and logging. That's what's going to turn Gold River around. I'm pretty confident that we have a role, but I don't think we're the lead on it. I really don't. I think it's the private sector needs to be the lead on it. And I don't, that's going to involve, like I said, a lot of scope. It's things that our ECDev officer and our community advisor is doing, plus something that Henry might be alluding to that might work with our businesses in town and senior levels of government, provincially and federally, to try and come up with something with Gold River, or just to facilitate it. But yeah, I want all the resources thrown at this, because if we don't get we got 2 more years to go, guys, and 2 more years, we need to be, I think we laser focused on everything that's ECDev, and trying to develop a new economy for Gold River. And like I said, I'll circle back to it earlier, is that we challenged the administrator and his team and our organization to do some certain things for us. And they're not easy. You look at your household budget, try and do what they're doing with the organization in your household budget, and you kind of realize pretty quickly what happens when you take all that money out, and they've taken a lot of money out. And they're providing the same levels of service, and nobody's getting laid off, nobody's getting fired. And that's a pretty good thing for our community, because that's part of our role, I think, in providing this environment that's attractive to business to want to come and locate here. They come to Gold River, it's like, great, you've got an arena, cool, you got a swimming pool, you got a golf course, you've got parks, you've got all these things that you've built over these years. Oh, gee, we want to start our business here. We don't want to go to this other community that has none of that, and we have to pay to develop all that. So yeah, we're doing our thing by keeping the village going. But I really believe that the private sector, hopefully they can step up in the next little while and give us some good news. I think that would be helpful. And yeah, going back to the budget, I do like it. There's a couple of things I don't think we touched on. You touched on that one position with the ECDev community advisor. There's also a discussion that we had on the fire department and providing for some remuneration for a deputy fire chief to support our full-time equivalent fire chief that we're going to buy. So that's also in there. I like that. And there's some things on the tangible capital assets that we're going to look at in the next report that I think are important, because we still got some projects that we're looking at that we need to move forward. But yeah, the work that you've done here, Administrator Roy, with your team, I'm very grateful for it, because I just don't see how we could carry on with like $800,000 deficits every year. We got no money left we're drawing down our reserves and our surplus, and we're raising taxes. But we do have to look at one question. There's one question that the administrator had drawn back to our attention again, is that something happened and it resulted in a loss of about $150,000 or $125,000 a year revenue every single year. And we need to address how we want to do that. Last year, we chose as a council to finance that out of our reserves. The question again is, are we going to finance that out of reserves again and draw down our reserves and reduce the amount of interest we're going to get back on our investments because we're spending that money? Are we going to increase the taxes? And there's some different proposals in there and taxes. And if we look at the different classifications, we've been down that road before. I don't know what the council's appetite is to review it, but I think as part of the process when you're looking at it. Or another thing is talking to the administrator about bringing us a list of $125,000 of additional cuts that he could envision in the village operations for 2025 to make up for that $125,000 shortfall. So there are some things that we still have to look at. Do we want to cut? Do we want to draw down existing reserves? and surpluses? Or do we want to raise taxes? And if we want to raise taxes, what classifications do we want to chase taxes on? But I don't think we can ignore it. If we really want to start getting this budget down, there's some of the hard decisions that we might have to look at. So I think that stimulates some discussion. I'm glad to see that. Councillor Waymire and then Councillor Pringle.
Yeah, just following up on that, I see that Grieg's making a community contribution of $50,000.
Great.
I'm very thankful for that. I guess I'm just looking for a little bit of clarity here. I guess, is this a one-time $50,000 community contribution, or are we looking at something more in the future? And also, is West Coast Marine Terminals making any sort of community contribution in 2025 or any other year beyond that?
Would you care to address that to the administrator?
Yeah, through the chair to the administrator.
Councillor Waymire, Administrator Roy, would you care to respond to that, sir?
Yes, Your Worship. Grieg agreed to give 2 years of $50,000 a year. Yeah, the first year one was 2024. We received that funding, and that they committed to giving another 50,000 in 2025. But there's nothing beyond that from Grieg. As to West Coast Terminals, I did reach out to them to see if they were open to something on the community contribution, and they responded that when they looked at it, they decided that they were not interested.
Subsequent, Councillor Waymire, are you good? I'll let you reflect while I go
Yeah,
to another
no.
councillor. Okay, you reflect. Were you Councillor Pringle? Thanks.
Thank you to the chair. Wow.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that I am not in favor of any job loss for our employees. We already run a bare bones, and we're having to have legacy problems of, you know, people leaving and retirements and those kinds of things. I don't think we can afford to lose any of our precious employees. And I would just like that out there, that is something that I would have to really, really have a good excuse for. You know, because the employees are the ones that make us, they're the reason why we still have a village. And I just would like to say, you know, for how many years they didn't take a raise, they didn't take anything so that the village could get through the very hard times. And you know, I just want to keep supporting them in hopefully they'll stay and retire, because that, you know, a lot of those people are our future, and we are putting time in to educate people, and we want them to stay when they're done their education, not just take it all and go because they're in fear of their jobs. So that's just something I would like out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Councillor Pickard.
Thanks, Councillor Pringle, and through the chair. And yeah, we can see, looking at this financial plan, that there's some big decisions that we have to make. And Councillor Fossin's been talking a lot about attracting business, and then just in response to Mayor's comments about attracting business and making it conducive for business and supporting business, and, you know, thinking that the private sector maybe will initiate that. But we hope so too, but we also are in the position here to make policy that either discourages or attracts business and can make incentives. So maybe we could, as we go forward, you know, we know something has to change. Nothing's really developed in the last little bit, a few like small businesses here and there, but we can maybe look at some kind of, like, there's revitalization tax exemption programs. And just like tonight, we decided to do the tax exemption, you know, we can look at putting a program in that really, we don't just talk about encouraging it and then do actions to increase taxes, so discourage it. We could actually put a program or policy in place. And the city of Trail, which is, like, you know, similar to ours, small, great recreational properties, great facilities, you know, proximity to world-class fishing here, but they have a great program, and it's a revitalization tax exemption program for all Class 6 business properties to encourage private sector investment in commercial building projects. And so the exemption program promotes the construction of new commercial buildings and major renovations of existing commercial buildings. expansion of the commercial property tax base, which, you know, for a few years, it says for up to 5 years, they're exempt and then they start paying. So maybe we could start to explore like some actual policy that instead of just thinking and talking that it would be good, that it might be exempt for a couple of years, but then provide some sustainability and longevity to the financial picture of the village. The program supports and promotes private commercial investment to strengthen the economy and commercial building expansion to create employment opportunities for residents. So it gives some tax exemptions to qualifying projects for 5 years. So just some ideas of what we do have the power as a municipal council to do to attract business. Thanks.
Councillor Fawcett.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Councillor Pickard, for that comment. I agree 100% with you on that, but what I look at too is, okay, what land are we going to be offering these businesses that are coming in to develop and build their business? We have nothing to offer. They're going to have to buy private land in order to build their new business, whatever it may be. Looking at giving a 5-year tax exemption when we might as well just, we know we'll probably be down in our reserves by then and running at a significant loss. So if we offer a business that comes in, say they're going to pay $100,000 a year in property tax, but we get to withhold that for 5 years, it might work for other communities, but I don't think it works for us. Having been here 22 years and seen a lot of prospective businesses want to come to town, it wasn't the lack of taxes or the amount of taxes they were going to pay that stopped them from wanting to come here. It was simply cheaper for them to go elsewhere, not because of our taxes. Very valid point, though. We should put action to our words. I agree. I don't know if that looks like a 5-year tax exemption or a 1-year or a 2-year, but that's something we can discuss as council and come up with something that I think we'd all agree upon to encourage business. The one thing that I'm looking at here, though, is that how are we going to take care of this $125,000 deficit? Are we going to, it's going to be increased. So I think that was one of the main questions, was how are we going to direct staff to deal with this?
Can I respond to that, Councillor?
And I guess in my viewpoint is we can't really, I agree, we have great employees. We can't really say, hey, let's cut back somewhere else.
Good question, Councillor Fawcett. If I can just interject for a moment, and I'll give the floor back to you. Is that I kind of looked at it and there's kind of a number of streams we can look at. One is that what's being proposed here is that increase the taxes, and the council choose what stream they want to increase the taxes on in order to do that. You can see different choices in the report and what percentage increases would mean if depending on what what part of the tax code that we go into. And then there's also, they have that you could, or you could just draw down your reserves. We still have money in the bank. You could just take, draw down the money they have in the bank, or we can talk to the administrator too and get him to bring us a list of $125,000 worth of cuts that we could add to the 500,000 that he's already made. And those I'm sure really hurt, but yeah, that's another option that we should look at. And I think that it probably prudent of us is we're going to look at this drawing down the reserves or raising taxes. We should also look at the expenditures too. And I think that the best thing for us to do is ask the staff, because they know where those kind of savings, or not savings, but those cuts would be made and what the cost would be for us. So that's or a combination of the both, all of them. But I think that's kind of where we are. Councillor Weimer.
Yeah, and I think this is a good place where we don't have to, make up everything all at once, all from one place. So I'm kind of interested in, splitting the difference here. I know last year, the mayor and I were in favor of, trying to make up most or if all of it through light business and light industry. What I'm seeing here is that we're getting $50,000 from light industry here to make up some amount of the lost revenue. And ideally in 5 years, we are, running a balanced budget. And I think what we can do this year is, ideally accelerate that, and not necessarily by tackling one person for everything, but by making a split. So I mean, I would be very in favor of having staff look at something along the lines of what would happen if we did 8.9% for residential only, and then let's say if it was 7 or double that, what is that? 18, no, what are 19.5, we'll call it. So 17.8, let's say 17.8 if we were to do 17.8 to light industry and business. So we're not, tackling them for, 100% of lost revenue. But we're also not going to our taxpayer and saying, hey, like, this is all of our problem. Like, there is, certain culprit here, and it comes from light industry and business tax that has cost us $125,000. And I'd be interested in what happens if we change that multiplier to make their tax increase, which 17.8. Just see what those numbers look like, both this year and moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor Waymire. Just a question to the administrator, that 50,000 that we're getting from Greg, is that reflected in the revenues for the 2025 budget?
Yes, that funding is reflected in the revenue. And just as a note, the 125 is just based on what would normally be coming across the wharf. It does not factor in the community contribution that we've also lost. So you recall, we got close to around $80,000 last year from the 2022 operations. So the 50,000 is something we may have gotten or higher if they were operating. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that was two different revenue streams that we lost.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Councilor Waymire.
Yeah, I think I've just turned off my mic. Yeah, I'm still very much in favor of just playing with the multiplier a little bit. Not so much that we're, punching anybody in the face, but enough that we're, trying to ease as much off of the residents. It sucks that it has to come from somebody, but I think it's worthwhile to do a, slightly higher increase, and at least explore that increase and look at what would happen if we were to this year change the multiplier so that they're paying, a little bit more this year, and see what that does for, 2026 and beyond.
So Councilor Waymire, just like a clarification, is that in the report that the administrators provided, he's indicated that based on 2024 assessments, the tax year, the tax revenue increases needed would have to be, and he's listed equal across all classes: residential class only, business class only, light industrial class only, light industrial business class 50/50. Are those the type of numbers are those the numbers that you were looking for, sir?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not looking for the net result to be $125,000. It sucks that we would have to do, very bad things to taxpayers to make up all of that money. But I would be interested in seeing what does 8.9% look across residential, and then have business and light industry class be at, call it double that.
Thank you, Councilor Waymire. So proposal there, did anybody want to go with that?
I'd like to see that as well. Thank you.
Okay, Administrator Roy, what it would take to provide that information for us for the next meeting? Would you be able to put that together in time for? That's only a week, though. That doesn't give you much time.
Mhm.
It would be for the next budget discussion, the meeting. We could attack it on with the capital at that time, and just start with that, and that would be in 2 weeks' time.
Is that acceptable to you, Councilor Waymire? Okay, that'll work. And just the other thing, could you also, so that we're talking about not nebulously, we're talking about, things that we understand, is could you draw up a list like you did for us in the first year we were in council of things that the administration could see that would cut $125,000 from the budget and operations, and tell us what those things would be, Administrator Roy?
Just as to remind council, that would result based on what we have as having to reduce services. So like, the question comes back to council, which
Yes.
service to?
I'd like to see that, what that impact would be, sir.
And is there any particular services that it should be focused on?
Whichever you're proposing that you think that we could cut within our organization for 125,000 would have the least amount of impact on our operations, but I suspect it would have impact on our operations in order to get that extra 125,000 a year. So yeah, I'd like to have that come from you so we understand what we're dealing with. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I would have to
Yeah.
excuse myself. Thank you.
Counselor Pringle, did you want to go ahead?
I'm just gonna bow out now. Sorry, I'm gotta go take some Tylenol.
I'm glad
Thank you,
stayed with us.
everybody.
I'm glad you stayed with us for the full night.
Be healthy.
Did you guys want to have any more discussion or did you want to call for the question? And this is just our first meeting. Counselor.
Thank you through the chair. And just a few questions for the administrator, just a couple different line items. So it's okay if we don't know them off the top of your head, but just on page 14, they're just big differences from 2024 budget to 2025. So just wondering what the change was. Page 14, the second one down, Public Works Administration. The 2024 budget, 143,500, and then 2025 budget, 1,000. Do you know what the difference is there? Thank you.
Oops, sorry, that's probably the asset management grant funding that we had 100 and, forget the it's got a total number right now, I think it was 190,000. That project should be completed by the end of this year, so that would account for a drop in the expenditures that are being done, which that was funded 100% by grant.
Attention to you.
Okay, thank you. And then one more, just on page 16, so budget forecast by costing center for the solid waste and recycling. And maybe it's similar or no, so under revenues, the third one down, transfer station general, 2024 budget, 144,478, and then 2025, 0.
What page was that? Counselor?
Page 16, and I'm still working on it, aligning some of the revenues appropriately within their budget before they're all kind of into one big bucket and not split across the different cost areas. So that's been a kind of an ongoing project. So what you'll see there is you got the transfer station general, that funding basically was moved down to the next line of transfer station administration. So you see there's a big jump in that one. Yeah. So just a little bit of a consolidation and realignment of some of the line items or to better reflect as we move forward. So we can look at say a cost center, say the arena and say the net cost of operating that is X without having to do a lot of legwork to try and determine that.
Any other questions for the administrator? Any other discussion? Good. Call for the question. All in favor? Didn't see Counselor Pringle. Are you still with us, Counselor Pringle? Okay, thank you. She's okay. Good. And that's great because we got nothing left to do here. Reports from council, none. Information items, none. Reports from committee, none. Bylaw, none. Correspondence, none. Question period. Nobody in the gallery. Any questions online? No questions online. Question period. Move on. New business. Motion to adjourn. Don't need that. Rise report. Motion to adjourn. Counselor Lawson, second. Counselor Waymeyer. All in favor? Well done, you guys. Thank you very much. Cool.